Alongside Kevin Hanks, joining me in the studio is TD Ameritrade Network contributor Jenny Horn. We have the VP of Research at LikeFolio.com, Megan Brantley, joining us as well to talk some Amazon here. I mean, you could spend a whole show talking Amazon, Jenny. They have countless brands, and I was thinking about this today when I was on my walk in. You know, is Amazon to that level now where the brand is as recognizable as a McDonald's, as recognizable as Starbucks? Is it to that point now where, you know, Amazon is the definition of scale, as Kevin likes to say?
I kind of think so, at least to me. And gosh, within the past year, I feel like it's really risen to that sort of dominance, like you just mentioned, because I mean, they have 25% more Prime members than they did last year. And of course, consumer spending is right now in pretty good shape. So with Prime Day that they launched back in 2015, they are expected to grow. Now, this event was originally to sort of boost some of their slower summer sales, but now I don't see them necessarily having that problem, being that they are, you know, so dominant in this space. But this year, U.S. Prime sales are expected to increase about 18% from 2020's previous event. And although Amazon does not report their Prime Day numbers directly, the company did say back in October something that I found pretty interesting, that its sales from its third-party sellers surpassed $3.5 billion in 2020. Now, this event is earlier this year, which has something, you know, something investors need to keep in mind. The company's CFO actually said this was due to a lot of the transportation constraints due to the 4th of July. So this earlier date actually makes it easier for its vendors and sellers, supposedly. So this event is actually now catering itself more to some of these smaller businesses. But something to keep in mind with these different spending holidays is it really actually worth it? So last year, on average, toys sold for 8% less online during the event, with electronics selling for about 7% less. So you would say that Black Friday or Cyber Monday deals are sometimes twice as steep as these deals. So that is something to keep in mind. But nonetheless, the event continues to grow. And that was something I actually saw on social media today, just the sales over the last few years as the event has been tracked. So our first tweeter today says Amazon annual Prime Day starts in 4 days on June 21st, going until June 22nd. Here's how much they sold on their past Prime Days. In 2015, 900 million, 2016, 1.5 billion, 2017, 2.4 billion, 2018, 4.2 billion, 2019, 7.2 billion, and 2020, 10.4 billion. So it's actually, you know, to me, amazing that they're still able to grow at such consistent levels, given the fact that this is now such an established company. And, you know, I just think that is pretty wild. Now, of course, comps are going to be difficult this, you know, second quarter, because we're comparing it to, of course, last quarter when we saw this pandemic sort of online stockpiling. So we'll have to wait and see how the second quarter is impacted from this Prime Day, but also dealing with these tough comps we've talked about. But our next tweeter sort of focuses on the retail sector as a whole, because of course this day does impact so many other companies. So our next tweet today says, gearing up for Amazon Prime Day, Amazon is expected to earn $386 billion in U.S. e-commerce sales for 2021, more than the rest of the top 10 U.S. retailers' e-commerce sales this year combined. Walmart's biggest U.S. competitor will make $67 billion in e-commerce revenue this year. This to me is crazy, because we always discuss Walmart being the biggest competitor, but clearly, are they actually even competing? So my question really now to you, Megan, is, you know, are they competing with a Walmart or a Macy's? But both of these have competing events this week, but or more, are they competing really with themselves here?
Yeah, I think that Amazon probably has the highest bar against themselves, you know, going up against 10 billion in sales on a holiday that they created. I mean, that's amazing as a company to even think about that concept, that they're drawing consumers in on a special day that they made up in the summer to spend money. Brilliant. But I do think that there are some tough growth comps, at least in general. I think that Amazon has become such a standard. It's hard to keep onboarding new members at the pace that they have been, because it's pretty, you know, saturated and incorporated into our lives at this point. One way that we're looking at this is specifically is over a 2-year time frame, because as you mentioned, these year-over-year comps are really difficult. One thing that we're keying into are some of these trends and also these brands. So these are some things that Amazon's doing really well compared to 2019. You know, they've done a really good job with Amazon Essentials, building out these, you know, kind of own brands on their platform that people can really easily buy and, you know, get shipped directly to them. They did a really good job with Twitch, this video game streaming service. That was absolutely explosive over the past year. They've done well expanding their AWS, their Amazon Web Services. I will say that there is a little bit of a slowdown in growth when you look at some of their other, prime focused products, even the Kindle, even the Fire TV. So I think that one thing to keep in mind is a lot of this is this new member growth. So obviously new member growth is going to be expected to slow down, but this is where things kind of get interesting. These are some consumer trends we're tracking. And you can see that on the very bottom of this trend is that 2-day delivery. This is the norm that Amazon established. And then at the very top of that trend chart, you see same-day delivery. So consumer expectations are continuing to rise. We're actually seeing signs of struggle from Amazon to be able to fulfill these. When we listen for mentions of people talking about a package being delivered late or a package taking longer than expected or, waiting on my package, been waiting for a long time, those mentions are up about 20% year over year. And we saw those mentions really surge over the holiday season. So it makes sense to hear you talk about, from a logistics perspective, they pushed this forward to be earlier, to improve those fulfillment methods, which I think makes sense. We'll certainly be watching for that today. But I think that if there is an area of improvement for Amazon, that's one kind of, mark in their armor that we're seeing some weakness out of, especially when it comes to consumer happiness, is just the fact that they're not able to, really guarantee that 2-day delivery anymore. Things are starting to take longer. In contrast, the Walmarts, like you mentioned, and even Target, they're able to step up and fulfill these things a lot of times on the same day, thanks to their just massive retail footprint that they have, that if consumers really want, they can, drive up and, just pick things up on the curb, or they can have things delivered via these same-day delivery services. So I think it's really interesting now that, while Amazon certainly has an e-commerce edge, this physical presence that Walmart and Target have are starting to play in their favor.
Yeah, Megan, this is the greatest corporate invention of a holiday since Walmart created Sweetest Day. So, but here's my question to you. Competition. The fact that all of these other companies, if you want to realize how important Amazon Prime Day is, understand that, Walmart, Target, they waited for this day to get on the calendar, and then they piggybacked it or mimicked it with, let's see, Walmart has deals for days, and Target has deal days, and Best Buy even has bigger deal, and Kohl's is involved. So is competition, though, is the fact that all of these other firms, big box retailers, are jumping on board with this day, and they don't have these 2 days to themselves anymore. Is that having any effect on Amazon Prime Day, Megan?
It's really interesting. We're tracking these mentions in real time, and I checked these like 15 minutes ago just before the show started, and the mentions of people actually buying something on Amazon were already at about 70% the levels we were yesterday, and it's 11:30 in the morning. So I think that obviously, this volume is increasing, but we're checking this across the board. So we are tracking the Walmart, as you mentioned, we're tracking Target, as you mentioned, we're tracking Best Buy, and those are also showing some, some signs of elevation. And so I think that this is something where obviously Amazon is the standard. I think the real winner here is probably the consumer, who has all of these companies competing for deals and, vying for their dollars. But so far, it's really early to see how this specific Prime Day will be impacted. But I'm excited, as the hours roll on, to see how they will stack up versus last year, to see if consumers are as excited, now that things are maybe open back up. I'm not certain that I would have necessarily known that it was Prime Day today had we not been necessarily talking about this on the show. But I may be an outlier consumer for sure. So we'll definitely be watching the data to see what the overall perspective of the consumer is. But there's definitely some buzz building today for Amazon. That's undeniable.
Okay, Megan, I love that you say that, because Alex and I were just talking before we went on about how we didn't know it was Prime Day either. So this must have not been marketed as well. And I'm an avid online shopper, so I'm like, I can't believe that I didn't know. But I'm curious, because this morning I did start going through these different deals, all the ones Kevin just mentioned with Deal Day and Walmart and Macy's. And I'm curious because I really didn't see actually that good of deals objectively, but consumers I know do like to feel like they're getting some kind of discount. And I'm one to just buy something on Prime Day just because it's Prime Day. I don't even know why. But I'm curious, with all these competing different sales, are consumers actually happy with the deals they're getting? Or are they like me, where they're just buying to buy?
You know, it's interesting. One of the trends we track too is deal discovery. And I think that those mentions are actually starting to spike today. So there is some type of a deal hunting element. There has to be a psychological component here where if you feel like you're getting, you know, you want to participate and you want to feel like you are getting something at a better price than you otherwise would have. And I think that there is an element of some consumers maybe who wanted to buy something are waiting until this day to make this purchase, especially, you know, if it wasn't something that they needed immediately, these electronics type things. And so those are that's one segment that we'll really be looking into to see if, you know, that helps to boost sales and specifically how that impacts competitors as well. But yeah, I think it's very fascinating that, you know, just from an awareness, this is almost a standard now. You know, the idea that you could find a good deal online and have it delivered to your house, it's not really novel anymore. This is just the norm. And so maybe that's why it's lost a little bit of its buzz this year. But, you know, for us, it's really, really early to tell how the specific Prime Day is going to play out. This chart, I think, is an interesting one because this shows the growth trajectory and the fact that, you know, Amazon obviously is this behemoth, but they're not completely insulated from all forms of competition. I think Shopify is a really interesting name on our radar that's showing really significant growth, really significant consumer happiness levels, much higher than that of Amazon. And what they're doing is they're enabling these brands and companies to go directly to the consumer without having to go through this external middleman like Amazon. Obviously, they are kind of a middleman, but they're cloaked. Like, I would guarantee that all of us have purchased something off Shopify or something that was powered by Shopify and didn't even know it. We thought we were just engaging directly with the brand. So I think this is an interesting just theme to watch of, you know, how significant, how likely is it that merchants are going to want to continue to have to go through Amazon and, you know, potentially, you know, pay part of those profits to Amazon whenever they can just go directly to consumers via something like a Shopify and, you know, not have a better fulfillment or logistics experience. And so this is definitely one to watch to see, okay, are even just these individual brands hosting deals today and not depending on going through Amazon as well? So we'll see.
Megan, as we tie this all together, I mean, we're talking about, I think Jenny's stat was $360 billion in revenue for the year. We're talking about the bar being set at over $10 billion for a single day. And as crazy as this is to say, this is only half of this company's business in terms of actually bottom line. In terms, AWS is roughly half of it. It's also considered their bigger growth driver. So, Megan, this is a company that's obviously outperformed for the better part of a decade, but it has a little bit kind of drifted, let's say, over the last 6 months, coming alive over the last week or so as it really started to rally. But from a LikeFolio perspective, I know you're still kind of analyzing in real time how Prime Day seems like it's going, but where do you stand on Amazon going into Prime Day here at $3,460? Is this stock seem expensive here, or is it crazy to say that this little lull period has actually given it some opportunity?
Honestly, we have Amazon probably priced about right. If we look at these earnings signals, and if they were to have earnings tomorrow based on everything that we've looked at, the earnings signal would be about a -11, and that's pretty neutral. Anything plus or minus 20 for us is really neutral. There is a little bit of a decline in buzz, and I think part of that is just that Amazon is so normalized, especially this consumer-facing side of Amazon people. It's just integrated in our lives, and so maybe consumers are a little bit less likely to talk about it every single time they use it if it's just kind of the standard. And so I would say that, you know, we're officially neutral on Amazon at this level. We do like Shopify, and that's definitely one that we do have more of a you know, if we're trying to pick a winner and we're trying to pick a company that has really a lot of potential for explosive growth, maybe that's the one that we're watching for opportunities, especially on pullbacks.
Good stuff. The VP of Research at LikeFolio.com, Megan Brantley. It is always a pleasure. You know, Jenny,